welcome to the podcast Of Course They Make Me Crazy. It's about crazy family stories. We all have one, right? More importantly, it's for those of you living with someone who suffers with a mental illness. You can start to feel lost in their world. Now, I get it. I grew up with a bipolar mom addicted to pain pills. Hoping the stories shared here will help you through difficult days. It's not all serious. We laugh and joke too. If you have little ones around, hop in your headphones. Adults only, please. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast Of Course They Make Me Crazy. I'm April. Thank you so much. So, the goal of this episode this week is to find your fighter spirit. Yeah. Or to regain your fighter spirit, right? It depends on where you stand. And it also does not matter what your fight is, because we got some nuggets for you. No matter where you stand, insightful nuggets. So the pretty blonde next to me is my good friend, Nicole Moses. Hi, girlie.
Hey.
Okay, so I'm so excited to have you because I know your story is really going to help those who are watching right now to get back into the mindset of positivity, really. And I know that you're going to help them be kinder to themselves after this episode and to be more mindful of their thoughts. And we're going to explain why. But Nicole, before you and I really start to get into your story, I want to start off with reading a Facebook post. I think you posted it last week, and I'm going to read it, okay? So it says, life can change, we can change, dark times don't last, but the journey, the fight, the belief, and the hope led me here today. And by gosh, I am grateful to dance and to smile and be goofy and to love again. And then she ended it with a little prayer emoji, signed off, fighter spirit. So that is why I want to call this podcast, change it up a little bit and call it Finding Your Fighter Spirit, because I know that that's what you really had to do. You had to fight to get to where you are today. And it makes me so proud. And I just loved reading that post. So now that I kind of showed where you stand today, beautiful, bright-eyed, in your thoughts in your life, let's talk about what happened. Let's talk about your story. So you were in an abusive relationship with a man that his career is about saving lives. He's a firefighter, still is, but you all met at the gym, right? So at the gym, I'm just going to assume that it was pure physical attraction, but that was not the case for you, right? I mean, it was for him, obviously. I mean, if you walked, listen, I used to own a fitness studio, and Nicole walked in, and I was like, I really like her. No, I mean, but I mean, just as a friend, as a spirit, as the energy, because you give off such good energy, but, so take me into that time where you guys met, because he really had to work on you.
So it was, I was just going in for my regular workout at the gym, and walked up to the front counter just wanting to get a free pass for one of my employees, because she was interested in doing the workout, and I was like, just use a 7-day free pass. I'll get one for you.
Yeah.
I went up to the counter, and they were like, you're going to have to go and speak with D over there in the corner. And I was like, well, that's weird. I kind of feel like all sales associates in the gym are more than capable of handing over a free pass for you. But I was like, okay, maybe this is something new. And right away, I could tell you, I didn't know what that hesitation or that little flick in your stomach was, which I ignored. But I was walking up my way towards him, and I was like, this is a very angry and very solemn kind of fella. And don't get me wrong, a very good looking, like it was back in the day when I really went for like the muscle type. I went and started talking to him. I'm like, hey, I just need a free pass for one of my employees. And he's like, well, why? And I was like, so I can gain you more people that come to this gym. It was just weird for someone in charge to be kind of engaging in conversation, but it was, in the beginning, was scary. Like something was wrong. It was maybe 5 minutes after speaking to him that like he kind of shifted personalities and started to show a little bit lighter side, kind of humorous, I guess. Like I really wasn't feeling it. And that's just the past and continued, doing my workouts, which over time I started noticing a little bit weirder things happen, which is, I started noticing that he was always at the front counter when I would check in. He would always be the one checking me in. When I was doing my workouts, I remember one time that I was doing some squats, and in the mirror in the back, like hidden behind the corner, I could see his face kind of peeking, checking me out. And like, not in a good way. Like this was like, I was like, this dude's really creepy. So,
interesting. So you weren't like, I look so good, he's checking me out, like it just, okay.
Yeah, he definitely gave me some scary vibes, but this is what was interesting about the whole kind of dynamic is that I really did feel like probably eventually I was getting groomed. I was prey because he wouldn't let up. And it was over a couple of months of, coming into the gym, and he started talking to me a little bit like more of a human. And it would run from 5 minutes. And then as time went on, I would notice that I was spending, 3 hours in the gym because the first hour I was talking to him. So some weird things started to happen then. And that was way before like our first date.
And so what made you think, because, people probably sitting back and listening to this are probably thinking, well, what the hell, how did she get into a relationship if she was getting these weird vibes, from this guy? So did he, because I know, you and I talked about this prior, obviously big time narcissist, and we also talked about how they operate, right? So they can tell instantly when you're starting to feel like they're being creepy. And then they can quickly switch and put on the nice guy, like, oh, she's not feeling this hardcore vibe. I need to like do a 360 and be like, hey, kind of thing, and reel you back in. But what was it about him that made you connect eventually?
He actually, I think it was like, in a sick way, it was his determination to like have a date, right?
Yeah.
So I was willing to go out on a date, and this is, months after our first initial meeting. And even then, like the first date just felt off with the guy. It definitely wasn't something where you're just like, oh, I hope to see you again. It was just something was off. It was almost like I was being presented with a good-looking, amazing, what appeared to be a kind-hearted human being. And I was confused because I think that was the time when like my gut was like, something's not real about this whole thing. But I stayed connected probably because of looks, probably because I don't have like the self-confidence that I should have had. Sometimes you kind of judge the way that like, good looking guys like you, and you're like, oh, maybe I'm pretty. And so you almost excuse the actions that you're receiving. You're like, nah, okay.
No, I get it. I think all of us women at one point, and maybe if you haven't, if you're listening and you haven't had this, but like, I dated this guy, 6'5", great looking. I was like, I felt like he and I were like, oh, Like we were like that couple. I mean, I remember people when we'd walk in, they'd be like, God, you guys are, such a good looking couple. Oh, and I'd be like, oh, and I just felt like that I glowed when I was with him, but truthfully I didn't, because he was just like your guy. You know what I mean? Like, I still had this weird feeling in my gut that there was something off, and there truly is. I mean, we did not escalate into a physical relation. I mean, a physical, he never threatened to harm me or anything of that sort, but there was a lot of emotional abuse, so much that, I mean, I started seeing a therapist just because of what he was putting me through. And by God, if you all already know my story, that I probably should have been seeing a therapist a long time ago for my family situations. But this guy was the one that took me to that point, and so I get where you're coming from in regards to them pulling you in and you feeling a certain way when you're with them, but then in a certain way in your gut and your intuition and God and your guardian angels are probably telling you run like hell, because he's not the one for you. So, yeah. So I completely get that. Okay. So you guys are dating, but I mean, Nicole, it got so bad to where like he physically started to harm you. And at what point in your relationship did that start to happen? How did that all kind of progress? Is there anything maybe for someone who's listening to this, were there any signs of him potentially going this way, or did it happen just one day or one night where you all escalated into an argument and then it just took off from there?
I would say it was little things, right? So the goal of a narcissist is to slowly break you down where you start to question your own thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Trust your own thinking. You're like, because you really don't want to be that crazy chick. Like
you don't, damn it, but it happens to all of us sometimes.
But the first action I would say was probably pretty quick. It was like a month into us dating. And in that month, just know it was little comments. Okay. So I started longing, because the criticism was way more than like the really good stuff that he would say, right? It was always a lot of bad. Like, a hug would be here and he would grab my skin and be like, oh, I'm packing on the pounds. Or he would make fun of how I did my makeup or how I wore my hair, or, they know you intimately to know what's going to cause you to like freaking spiral, because it hurts when they say that. But the first action was actually a wrestling match that him and I had, which I thought was supposed to be fun. And in that wrestling match, he literally freaking threw me to the ground where like you're sliding on the carpet, and it gives me chills. Like, the laugh that he did afterwards, I was in utter shock because I'm a girl, and what he just did was incredibly powerful. Not even like, that's not even a like fun wrestling. Like you turn this into like you pushed me.
Right.
I remember just this pit in my stomach, like that was wrong. And his laughter was supposed to shoo it off, like, come on, get up, like you're not that weak, that kind of thing. And so that was the first time that it started to escalate. It got worse as time went on.
And then you are thinking, well, shit, maybe he's right. Maybe I am being, too sensitive about it. But then you're like, well, no, but I mean, that was like way overboard. But then he did go overboard. As you said, it continued to escalate. There was a time where he, threatened to cut your body up and throw you into the woods. And, you know, tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it got, worse, as in, he would go for the neck and pin me up on the wall and raise me.
Yeah.
And you're just shaking. There's times when he showed me his gun. He forced me, I had a cross necklace on my neck because of my belief, and he told me to take it off. And then after I took it off, he raped me. Mm-hmm. He gave me a date rape drug, and I woke up
during that time, because looking at Nicole, and this is what I told her too, like when she stepped foot in my studio, I was like, I would never have ever imagined anything. And I don't mean to stereotype. I mean, my mom went through a very abusive relationship. We spent years running and hiding, and I was telling Nicole, she slept on the couch until she passed away like 3 years ago, because she was always afraid, even though she married an amazing man. She was always afraid, that other man was going to come back to do something to her, right? Because she was living the best life. She was living a better life, than he could ever imagine. And, well, to a certain extent, meaning, I think he broke her so much that obviously we know her situation. But my train of thought, I forgot what I was going to say. But where I was, just looking at you and knowing, and you would just never guess that someone, with your beautiful smile, and it was so cute because you actually froze. That cute smile of yours actually froze. It's raining like mad here in Colorado, so like the reception is kind of nutso. But you would have never guessed that. But during that time, you started to seclude yourself, and you started to feel just lost in life and dark, and you started to really not reach out. I mean, you had your girlfriend, your best friend, and she was a little confused by everything, but you really started to close yourself off, didn't you?
I did. I grew increasingly angry. I hated the world. I was frustrated with trying. I really did go into a really dark time, where I couldn't even recognize myself, because I felt like I lost her, because I no longer laughed. I no longer smiled. I didn't care. I wanted to sleep. I was miserable in life. The aftermath of leaving and getting away from abuse is also very, very hard on your soul. You blame yourself for everything that happened, and you almost succumb to like this, I'm not good, I don't deserve to be here, look what I've done to myself. It's a hard coming to, for sure. It's not easy.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine. And so it was a night where you basically just had a complete meltdown and said to God and to your guardian angels, either you need to do something right now, or I'm going to do something, and it ain't going to be good.
It ain't going to be good.
Yeah. And that lead us to that.
Yeah, it was a scream and a cry for help, because I battled for so long, and I was so tired of fighting to try to be happy when I wasn't happy, or to get help when I just felt like life was really just not fun anymore. So I did. I screamed at the top of my lungs. I'm like, do something, because if you don't, I am, and it's just not going to be good. Yeah. And then that night I went to bed, and I woke up with the words, "You are light." And it was my own voice, very loud, very poignant in my ear, that it woke me up from sleep. And it was super weird. But I woke up and I ended up writing in my journal, "You are light." And it was next to, just as a side note for anyone that's going through things, because you feel so messed up in here. Yeah. I took a pen to the paper and I wrote down 3 pages of things that I couldn't understand what D was doing to me, but I wrote down things that like I'm pretty sure he is, right?
Right.
So I wrote all of this down and I handed it off to my therapist, and she's like, "You're in an abusive relationship. You're with a narcissist. You need to go. You need to exit." And I was like, "What?" Like, I was really dumbfounded. But it was on that, I didn't open my journal until I had like the "You are light." And that was like the starting point of my healing, because over time, this wasn't an overnight sensation. This was months and years, but it ended up being that it used to take me 4 hours in the morning to like put myself together, to get dressed, to try to be motivated, to go and run my shop, to motivate my staff so I could hurry home and come back to bed. And instead of 4 hours, there was one day I did it in 3.5, and I swear to God, I was like, "Oh, I can sleep for an extra half hour." And I was stoked about that. And that's when my self-talk started, and I didn't know that, right? So I wasn't really one for affirmations on the mirror or little sticky notes. But that's kind of what turned for me, was I was starting to cheer myself on for the fact of like, whoa, something changed, and that's good, like 3.5 hours. And then, it would be over time that like someone actually made me smile, like a real smile, and
yeah.
Oh my God, there's that, or that good belly laugh that you thought was gone forever. Those are the little things that I fed on. I couldn't get enough of, because that's what kept me going, was like, maybe I'm coming out of it now. Maybe this is what healing is. Maybe this is what I have to do. My dog keeps licking my legs.
Mine's sitting out in front of my door looking at me like, you gonna let me in?
I think it's important to note that like it really is up to you. There is no easy way out. And I feel blessed to even be able to share my story. But I think the biggest thing, and one of the most wonderful things that I think you're doing, is voicing, because no one was there telling me things, that happened to them. So I felt ashamed and guilt. And as a business owner, it makes you feel like you're supposed to have your shit together.
Right.
And so when you do this and you have to ask your staff to help you because you got yourself into a mess, I was really relying on, your studio, when I came back out in the world, I was relying on strangers to help me. Yeah. Not that my family and my friends and my best friend, not that they wouldn't do anything for me.
Of course.
Do everything in the world. I think it just came from, like, again, it's kind of comforting when people don't know your story. And so or know you personally. So when you share something, it's almost like it kind of builds this confidence, like, yes, it happened. I own it. That's no longer something that I'm going to take on. And if I can help somebody else, then that's my job.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you wrote things down, whether you were feeling terrible, bad, good. And I love that you took those little rewards to yourself of, oh my God, I got ready in 3.5 instead of 4. And wait a minute, they made me laugh today. And, maybe even you should, if you're listening to this, you should be writing that stuff down too, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And when you read it, and I do that sometimes when I journal too, and I look back and I'm like, oh my God, like I really felt that way. For God's sakes, I still kind of feel that way sometimes. But then it makes you think like, well, shit, I've been feeling this way for an entire year. Now it's got to stop, right? It's like, then you think to yourself, hello, McFly, you've been dealing with this for a year, because when you don't write it down and you don't date it, then you don't really know that you've been feeling that way for that long. I love that. And I'm so glad that you shared that tidbit, because I think that that is a true nugget of what's going to help somebody find their fighter spirit again, is giving themselves that little like, yeah, you know, I love that. Oh, okay. So we're going to wrap it up there, but I am so happy that you shared your story with us. Thank you, love. I just love and adore you.
My pleasure. I hope that it helps people out there, and just know, like, it really is up to you. You know, you're in charge of your life, and you can change it if you want to. It's not going to be easy, but like, you do get to a place where you can be damn proud of the journey that you came through and what you fought to get here, and you know, and just keep kicking and keep hanging out with good peeps, and
yeah, find your tribe, because your vibe might not be your tribe at this moment, but if you find one, it'll become it, right? You know, yeah. So all right, well, we'll Those of us living with people suffering from a mental illness have a lot to deal with too. They're not the only ones hurting. We hurt with them. Having a supportive community is so important to your health. Would love to hear your story too. Email, of course they make me crazy, @gmail.com.